Hello, beautiful beings, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about how to heal from your emotional baggage, childhood traumas, and start moving forward and start healing your emotions and feelings and becoming more aware of the things that you might be holding on to. So, without further ado, let's talk about it. There's a lot to talk about in this topic, and I'll be breaking it down into 4 categories or 4 topics or something like that. And I will definitely be giving some examples, and some of these things I've never really told a lot of people about my own personal life and personal stories that I'm ready to share and to at least help one person, knowing that you're not the only one going through it, and knowing that you can move forward and you can start releasing some of these baggages and start forgiving yourself and letting go of the things that you might be holding on to. So, starting from the beginning, first is awareness/mindfulness. And traumas can be from natural disasters, like earthquakes and stuff like that, and car accidents, to smaller things like maybe someone telling you what to do all the time and nagging at you that eventually builds up and explodes. And there's many types of traumas, but I feel that a lot of it is rooted in from our childhood, and because this is a time where we're learning and we're vulnerable and we're still trying to figure things out. So things tend to easily affect us, just as if one of your parents weren't there when you were a child, then you might start feeling abandoned. If your parents kept on, showing more affection and love to your other siblings and stuff like that, you might have felt like you weren't loved. Or if you didn't feel that what you were saying or your dreams or desires were recognized, you might feel that they don't love you, or you might feel that, they're putting you down. These are all stories that we tend to tell ourselves growing up when certain things happen, to try to cope with it and to try to, identify what it is. But sometimes we grow up and we still are subconsciously holding on to these things and expressing it and seeing it in our external realities. And that's why sometimes cycles keep on repeating endlessly, continuously, and we keep on going back to it, going back to someone who keeps on breaking our heart, or going back to the person or family that we want the affection and love to that we never got, even though it is an abusive relationship, or even though if it's not healthy. You know what I mean? So it's very important to sometimes sit down, and whether it's through meditation, whether it's just going out in nature, sitting down, really thinking about what has affected you, back to your most earliest memories, or what you can remember of, whether if you're super young or whether you're a teenager, you know what I mean? Just thinking about, okay, what has someone done that made me feel a certain way, or what story was I telling myself? I feel like once you're aware of something, you can't be unaware of it, because it will always come back. You recognize it, and it will just always kind of be at the back of your head. You know what I mean? Just like when you see something, you can't unsee it. I feel like it's kind of like that. For example, this is from my own experience, and this is not to bash my family members or anything, but when I was younger, this is because how, my family used to grow up, and this is how their family members taught them. Mainly in Asian or foreign households, parents tend to hit their kids for discipline, and this is how I grew up. They yelled at me, and it was abusive, and they used to hit me for discipline because that's how they grew up. That's how their parents treated them, and that's something that they knew of. Definitely now things have gotten way better because I started to take back my power and realize this was not the thing that they should be doing, and started to speak my truth. But at the time when these things were happening, I was in a lot of fear and vulnerability. And, this was when I was younger. And I thought this was how it is. This is how everyone did it. This is, everyone's parents yell at them and, hit them. And, I thought it was like that. I thought it was normal. That was because that's the only thing that I had experienced. My coping mechanism for these things was trying to push the thoughts away, saying it's normal, it's okay, it's not a bad thing, you know what I mean? And being oh, it's okay, acting like it's all okay, and crying to sleep, and trying to shove these thoughts away. Just put on this persona of it's okay, but one of the reasons I did do that, it was because I didn't want to feel these emotions. And I also didn't know, I was super young. Y'all know I'm only 15. And me still being young and developing, I didn't know how to deal with these emotions either. We all use some type of a coping mechanism when we start something new, or when we experience something that is traumatic. Indulging on something, whether it is shoving things down, whether it is putting on this persona, or putting on all this makeup and doing certain things to cover it up. But with all those layers, eventually you're gonna explode. You're gonna, those layers are gonna come off. Just like an onion, And when these things do come or arise, or when someone says something that triggers us, or triggers these traumatic memories and things, our body reacts. Sometimes we go like this to make it seem like we're all tough, and put up a front. I don't even know what to call it, like a persona of oh, I'm all tough, blah, blah, blah. Or sometimes we go in trying to cover ourselves, or if we don't want to talk about something, or turn around, or our body language also indicates how we feel. And it's very important to become aware of how these certain events has affected you, whether if it's in a small spectrum or a large spectrum, because these things can really psychologically impact you when you grow up, and with the decisions you choose to make, and with the certain people you choose to hang out with, who you choose to marry, what relationships you choose to get into. So the first step, in my own personal experience, becoming more aware of what we choose to tell ourselves and the stories we have told ourselves in the past that is still with us till today, and the coping mechanism, certain things we choose to do to still put these things to the side. A great way is whenever you're having a conversation with someone, if you're feeling, so they say something to you and you feel triggered, not to impulsively, react on it, but to, be okay, I feel this way, let me sit on it for a while, and let me see where is this rooted in, you know what I mean? And sometimes it can go way back. Sometimes we don't even realize how many things we're holding on to until we start sitting down and really evaluating and thinking about what it could be, and then we come to the conclusion, it's dang, I didn't even notice that I was still holding on to this. I didn't even notice that I was doing these things. Next step is confirmation, admitting what happened to you, and admitting that these things did affect me. Maybe these things did not affect me in a big spectrum. And maybe it's just, a little thing that someone said and kept on saying it that, made me believe it, or made me tell myself this story that I was not good enough, that I was not that I was not deserving of something, that I was not this and this and that, and admitting, or maybe in a bigger spectrum, physical abuse, emotional abuse. And sometimes we tend to cover it up by saying, I'm fine, it's okay, and put on this fake smile, and sometimes we tend to, our voice goes low just as our body reacts, we freeze, or we go do certain things to try to play it off cool, it doesn't affect us, Well, in reality, it really does affect us. And coming to terms with it and confirming that these things has affected us, you, me, you know what I mean? Coming to terms with the situation itself and that it did affect us in some way. For me, my confirmation was accepting that I did have these experiences and these things were not okay. That these things that had happened to me, whether, physically abusing me or sexual harassment that had happened to me, that I did go through these things and know what happened to me and what these people did was not okay. And when I do say how I feel and express my emotions, they should not be yelled at. They should not be told to, oh, they're not valuable enough to talk about, or they're to this and that, and that's not the right thing to think about. Because my opinions and values do matter. And accepting that I did feel isolated, I did feel unloved, and I did feel that I was not understood, that I was abandoned, that I felt lonely. That my own family members did not support me or were not there for me and were shoving me down instead of trying to understand what I was trying to say or what I was going through. I had to come to terms with these things, and it was difficult for sure. And I used to go to these, because I played sports a lot as a kid. I'm still a kid. But I had basketball games and soccer games, and all their other parents and family went to it, and like my parents didn't go to it, which made me feel like they didn't care and they didn't want to go to it. And I kind of felt sad that they didn't go to it, because I felt like they didn't care, and I felt like because I saw all these other people go to it. So that's another example, which I will touch up on a little bit more after I talk about the confirmation. And sometimes when we keep on going through these experiences over and over and over again, we start feeling numb. Like, it has happened so many times that it's just like we feel numb to it. It's like a day-to-day thing. A day-to-day thing to feel this way, to keep on, you know what I mean? Like, we constantly are going through this, that we feel like it is normal. That we feel so, and we're not even acknowledging the fact that some of these things we have gone through and some of the things we might still be going through is not okay. And because it keeps on happening so often, we find it to be normal, and we start feeling numb to it, like it doesn't kind of affect us anymore. Realizing that your value does not decrease from someone else's inability to see your worth.